Inhaling burning organic matter is a highly efficient way to introduce toxins to your lungs. We know exactly how it poisons the body, but that makes the origin of the behavior incredibly difficult to explain. If human biology rejects toxic ash, we have to ask exactly why we ever started breathing it in on purpose. The answer might come from something called the fourth biological drive. A psychopharmacologist named Ronald Siegel spent his career studying why organisms consume things that alter their perception. He concluded that the pursuit of an altered state of consciousness is a basic biological imperative, sitting right alongside hunger, thirst, and sex. And we know this drive extends far past humanity. In Siberia, wild reindeer will actively track down and eat psychedelic mushrooms. They will even consume the urine of other reindeer who ate the mushrooms first, effectively recycling the active compounds. When a behavior is that old, that widespread, and that consistent across entirely different species, it makes no sense to treat it as a glitch. The urge to cross the threshold into a different mental state is a deeply embedded feature of how a brain operates. To find the exact moment humans first collided with psychoactive smoke, we have to look back roughly 1 million years. In Wonderwork Cave in South Africa, archaeologists uncovered ash residue from a fire that was deliberately maintained. The people sitting around that fire were Homo erectus. They had smaller brains and heavy brows, but they had controlled fire. That fire provided absolute protection from predators at night, and that protection triggered an evolutionary chain reaction. For the first time in primate history, human ancestors could safely sleep on the ground. That safety allowed the brain to drop into deep REM sleep for vastly longer periods. REM sleep is actually the brain's first natural altered state. The neural firing patterns in REM look entirely different from normal waking consciousness. Parts of the brain shut down, while others surge with activity, generating vivid, emotionally raw, completely immersive hallucinations. Early humans chose their campsites for safety, not for the local flora. Eventually, someone threw a branch onto the fire from a plant containing volatile psychoactive molecules. A human waking up by that fire would inhale the drift, completely by accident, and suddenly feel lighter, dizzy, or entirely detached from reality. Their nervous systems mapped these two intense experiences together. When those early ancestors woke from the neural storms of REM sleep and inhaled smoke that shifted their waking senses, fire became the constant factor in both the dreams they couldn't explain and the new sensations they were starting to repeat. The reason early humans found that accidental smoke pleasurable is written directly into your neurology. Your brain possesses an endocannabinoid system. It regulates memory, mood, appetite, and your response to stress. Those internal receptors evolved strictly for biological regulation, but by pure evolutionary coincidence, wild cannabis plants developed chemical compounds that fit the shape of those human receptors almost flawlessly. When early humans breathed that specific smoke, their brain recognized the molecule and triggered a reaction. We have physical proof of when humans started manipulating this biology on purpose. In the Great Salt Lake Desert of Utah, archaeologists excavated a 12,000-year-old hearth. Inside, they found seeds from a wild North American tobacco species. They weren't scattered by the wind. They were concentrated in a deliberate pattern inside the pit. Finding intentional tobacco use 12,000 years ago pushes the timeline back by thousands of years. Early humans were fully aware of what these plants did and actively sought them out to trigger a biological response. Ancient societies built strict infrastructure around smoke, starting with medicine. Documents like the Ebers Papyrus in Egypt and ancient Ayurvedic texts in India prescribed inhaled herbal smoke for respiratory illness. Since the lungs absorb compounds directly into the bloodstream, they were essentially building early inhalers to deliver targeted clinical relief. The second pillar was spiritual. For thousands and thousands of years across the Americas, tobacco was approached with deep reverence. Indigenous cultures understood smoke as a living carrier that moved prayers upward and brought visions down. The practice required rigorous preparation and intense respect for a plant they considered powerful and dangerous. The third pillar was survival through social cohesion. Modern neuroscience shows that when a group undergoes a shared, intense ritual, their neural activity synchronizes. Entering an altered state together in a closed space chemically increases mutual trust, binding individuals into a cohesive unit capable of surviving threats. The Greek historian Herodotus documented this exactly in the 5th century BC. He wrote about Scythians building tents, throwing hemp seeds on glowing stones, and howling with pleasure. Scholars dismissed him for 2 millennia, until modern archaeologists dug up Scythian burial mounds and found the bronze braziers and hemp residue exactly where he said they would be. Before written history began, smoking was heavily regulated technology. Humans utilized it to heal the sick, communicate with the dead, and forge the intense tribal bonds required to keep a community alive in a hostile world. The relationship we had with these plants survived intact until 1492, when European explorers encountered tobacco in the Americas. Within a matter of decades, they exported the plant across the Old World, initiating a massive historical shift. European traders stripped away the indigenous rituals, reverence, and spiritual restrictions that had managed the behavior for thousands of years. They removed the cultural safeguards, leaving only the bare biological reaction and the potential for profit. In the 20th century, the Industrial Revolution mechanized cigarette production, moving these plants from sacred rituals into automated factories. This shift made tobacco cheaper and more accessible than at any point in human history. Corporate executives then refined the chemical composition of the plant. They added compounds designed to accelerate nicotine absorption and speed its clearance from the body, shortening the time between the first puff and the next craving. This wasn't an accidental discovery. Industry professionals identified the biological drive to seek an altered state and engineered a specific product to exploit it, creating a rolling cycle of consumption for financial gain. If you sit near a bonfire today and catch the scent of the wood burning, your nervous system still picks up the signals. It recognizes the scent of warmth, the perimeter of safety, and the earliest version of human community. The basic chemistry of smoke hasn't changed since the first controlled fires 1 million years ago. We simply chose to disconnect the substance from the community and ritual that once made it a tool for survival. We took a practice that built human trust and enabled civilization, removed the context that kept it safe, and allowed it to become a mechanism for our own addiction. We didn't change the fire, we changed what we did with the smoke.